You will believe a man can fly, or in this case, a girl. But not just fly. In Supergirl, the latest movie from James Gunn's DCU, the Girl of Steel has her own particular style of flying, using the ability as a sort of unique form of martial arts at times.
I kind of liked her having her own flying style, because I think she's so herself in every sense of the word she can only ever be. Exactly who she is, so it makes sense that she wouldn't conform.
But it's been quite a journey to go from the early days of on-screen Kryptonian flying to today's high-tech methods, and it's rarely been an easy path along the way. So with the help of the woman of tomorrow herself, Millie Alcock, and Supergirl's director Craig Gillespie, let's trace the earliest attempts to depict Superflight in movies and TV, and the heights that have been achieved in the modern DC movies. Of course, there's been a ton of superhero movies over the years, and many of them have featured some form of flying or another, but Superman and Supergirl style flight has always been the trailblazer to which all other airbound characters have looked. In the case of Alcock's Supergirl, she flies in a manner similar to her cousin, as we saw in last year's Superman, but then she adds in a kick here or a punch there, melding her fighting with her flying.
I hadn't got to see Superman at the point that we were doing these flying sequences. And there was this discussion of like the physics of it and how fast it is. Rob Inch, our stunt coordinator, had a lot of input, which I liked. And it's like for him, it was this effortlessness.
Yeah.
It wasn't, she didn't have to crouch down and jump. And it was just kind of, it was something that was very intuitive and easy to do. So he had a lot of input on that.
Yeah.
That sense of the ease of flight can actually be traced all the way back to the first on-screen depiction of Kryptonian flying, the animated Fleischer Superman shorts from the early 1940s. Interestingly, while Superman was rotoscoped in that cartoon series, which is to say much of the animation was traced over live-action shots, the actual flying, of course, could not be achieved this way. This gave the animators a free hand in a sense, and the result was a sort of balletic dance through the sky that enabled them to chart some of the earliest movements of the Man of Steel. Also, fun fact, this series marked the first time that Superman used flight as his regular mode of transportation, as opposed to just jumping around Hulk style. Leaping forward 40 years or so for a quick aside, the beloved by many, forgotten by even more TV series, The Greatest American Hero, tackled the question of how exactly flight would work. Like, do you just start levitating upwards, or is there some kind of forward thrust needed to get going? The show posited the opposite of the effortlessness that Gillespie wanted with Kara.
You're not doing it right. You gotta run like 3 steps and jump with your hands out in front of you.
You can see why the makers of the show introduced ideas like that, and really it's something that even the modern superhero movies continue to struggle with. Putting aside the fact that the Greatest American Hero never really mastered his powers over the course of the show's 3 seasons, that was the point of the whole show, characters like this always run the risk of being too powerful.
And then, my input was more like disabling the flying, like having it be poisoned.
Yeah.
It's the tricky part of Superman and Supergirl is that they're so all-powerful. It's like, how do you make them compromised?
That said, the makers of the earliest attempt at a live-action Superman really didn't have to worry about their version of Kal-El seeming too powerful. In 1948, Kirk Alyn became the first live-action version of the Man of Steel in Columbia Pictures' 15-part movie serial titled simply Superman. Here, the filmmakers must have figured that the Fleischer cartoon worked well enough, and so they simply cut to an animated version of Superman for the flying scenes. It's kind of cool, sure, but it's also kind of jarring by today's standards. Oddly enough, even Tim Burton resorted to this kind of trickery back in 1989's Batman, though in that case it was just to show the Dark Knight standing on the balcony of a skyscraper for one shot. Kind of weird. But let's be fair here to Kirk Alyn and directors Spencer Gordon-Bennett and Thomas Carr. They were working with what they had at the time, and hey, fans finally had their first real live Superman on the big screen. The resources at the disposal of Warner Brothers and DC Studios would probably boggle the minds of Bennett and Carr today. For example, Alcock and Gillespie told me that the shot of Supergirl flying into a karate kick was achieved in camera, as opposed to through CG or some other visual effect.
We had that massive fight sequence in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
And we shot it for almost 6 weeks on that stage.
On that stage.
Rob Inch, who was our stunt coordinator, came over at one point with all the ratcheting and the cabling of those flying sequences. There was 8 miles of cable. And he said, I've never used 8 miles of cable.
Because we all shot it like it wasn't.
There's that one shot, which was the stunt double.
Yeah.
Nikki, who, and from way up the top of the set, she flies down about 50 yards and kicks a Bragan.
Yeah. She did that.
That was half our day.
Yeah.
Today, that boy, grown to manhood, is known as Superman.
By 1951, the first proper Superman movie was released with Superman and the Mole Men, which gave us George Reeves as the Man of Steel. Reeves would go on to play the character for another 7 years on the TV series Adventures of Superman, and it was in this era that audiences finally got their first live-action flying sequences for the DC hero. In fact, this particular style of flight would become the norm for years to come as far as the rarefied field of Superflight went. How it was achieved was relatively simple. A device called the pan was hidden under Reeves's costume. Mounted to a pole, it allowed for limited movements such as pitching and rolling. And hey, laying on your belly with a wind machine blowing in your hair and your cape never looked as cool as it does here. 20 years later, flying was taken to the next level with the Christopher Reeve incarnation of Superman.
Hi there. Something wrong with the elevator?
The whole "you will believe a man can fly" tagline originated here, and man, they weren't kidding. As budgets increased and technology improved, a variety of new methods were implemented to make Superman soar, including a combination of wire rigs, blue screen mats, front projection, and more. But only after, according to producer Ilya Salkind, the production lost some $2 million on failed flying tests.
Only today, do we have the kind of equipment that you can make this happen. In the 50s, he was stuck lying on a table with the wind machines going and the whole thing. But today, this is sort of, I looked at it as kind of modern Dance in the Sky, that he can either be a human jet and go 3 times the speed of Concorde, or he can go quite slowly and sort of and beautifully through the air in a scene that he takes Lois around the city.
This was also the period where the first live-action Supergirl appeared, with Helen Slater starring in the 1984 spin-off to the Christopher Reeve series. Slater's version of the character was given a few more feminine touches to her flying, but it was mostly the same approach as her cousin over in Metropolis. Still, once we really believed a man or girl or woman could fly, there was no going back. Modern films have continued to perfect the art of flight, even while looking for unique spins on it, like Alcock's Flying Foo, if we can call it that. And yet, no matter how advanced or unique superhero flight becomes, there will always be one universal truth, according to the actress.
I was like, I can fall. I can actually fall. I can actually hurt myself. I have the bruises to prove it.
For even more on Supergirl, be sure to check out our review. And for all of your flying and other superpowered needs, be sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you watch.